Chapter 3 Dreams and Bloodlines. Drupnir stirred, blinking groggily as the dim torchlight of the tunnels flickered across the rocky ceiling. A deep, satisfied sigh left his lips as warmth spread through his chest. The dream had been perfect. Miracle's voice, soft, teasing, rang in his head. The scent of grilled steak, butter-drenched lobster, and charred shrimp lingered on his tongue. The dream had been so real, as if he could still taste it. Then laughter. Low guttural chuckles surrounded him. Drupnir's eyes snapped open. His siblings stood around him smirking, their predatory grins gleaming in the dim light. "What's this?" Ruva sneered, arms crossed. Was the mighty Drupnir smiling in his sleep? Harg snorted. "Giants don't smile, brother. The hell were you dreaming about?" Drupnir frowned, shifting against the stone floor, realizing that, yes, his face actually ached from smiling. Shit. Ruva crouched closer, eyes narrowing. "You've been acting strange lately. First you barely eat. Now you're smiling in your sleep? What's next, Drupnir? Are you going to start singing songs to the moon?" The others chuckled, but Drupnir ignored them, sitting up with a grunt. "Mind your damn business." Harg wasn't done, though. He sniffed the air, then his smirk widened. "You smell like the surface." The mood shifted instantly. The chuckling stopped. Silence hung heavy in the tunnel, thick as the damp air. Ruva's smirk faded into something colder. "You went up there again, didn't you?" Drupnir said nothing. His siblings closed in. "You've got our father fooled," Ruva murmured, circling him. "But not us. We see it. You're soft, Drupnir. Always have been. Always will be." A dark chuckle left Harg's lips. "Guess he takes after her." Drupnir stiffened. Ruva leaned in. "You remember her, don't you? That free-spirited runt who couldn't stand being one of us?" Their mother. Drupnir did remember. She had been different from the others, gentler, always speaking of change, of a life outside the tunnels. She had tried to teach him things the others called useless human filth. And then one day she was gone. "She left us," Harg growled. "She left you." Drupnir's fist clenched, but he didn't rise to the bait. He wouldn't. Not this time, but Ruva just grinned. "And you know what's funny? You're just like her." Drupnir exhaled slowly through his nose. His mother's blood ran through his veins, yes, but so did his father's, and right now, his father's side was winning. Drupnir forced himself to relax, rolling his shoulders as he met Ruva's stare. "Think whatever you want," he muttered. "I don't care." Harg scoffed. "You should care. You don't belong up there. You're not human, Drupnir. You're one of us, no matter how much you wish you weren't." Ruva leaned against the tunnel wall, smirking. "Tell me, brother, do you think she ever thinks about you?" Drupnir's jaw tightened. "Mother?" Ruva continued, her voice dripping with mock sympathy. "Do you think she regrets leaving? Do you think she lies awake at night, missing her poor lost little boy?" Drupnir's nails dug into his palms. "You don't get it, do you?" Ruva tilted her head, her red hair falling over one shoulder. "She didn't just leave, she abandoned us. She abandoned you." "Shut up," Drupnir muttered. Harg's grin widened. "Ah, did we strike a nerve?" "I said shut up," Drupnir growled, his voice a low rumble. Ruva just laughed. "Face it, brother, you're nothing but a disappointment to her, to father, to all of us." Drupnir moved before he could think. His massive hand slammed into the tunnel wall beside Ruva's head, cracking the rock. Her grin faltered. Harg tensed. The other giants fell silent. Drupnir was the biggest of them all, the strongest, the only one who could match their father in size. And for the first time, his siblings looked at him with something other than amusement. They looked at him with caution. Drupnir's breath was slow, controlled. "You're real brave when father's not around," he muttered, his voice dangerously low. Ruva's eyes narrowed. "And what are you going to do about it, little brother?" A tense silence stretched between them. Then a deep voice rumbled through the tunnels. "Drupnir." The siblings froze. Drupnir turned, his massive frame blocking the tunnel's dim light. At the far end of the cavern stood Gorm, their father. The old giant loomed in the shadows, his glowing eyes unreadable. Drupnir stepped back from Ruva, his hand falling to his side. Gorm took a slow step forward. "Come." Drupnir hesitated, then followed. As he left, he could feel his siblings' eyes burning into his back. Drupnir followed his father through the winding tunnels, his heavy footsteps echoing against the damp stone. The deeper they went, the quieter the tunnels became. No more distant chatter, no more flickering firelight, just darkness and the slow, steady rhythm of Gorm's steps. Finally, they reached a secluded cavern, far from the others. Here, the ceiling stretched high, the air thick with the scent of damp earth and stone. It was one of the few places in the tunnels where Gorm preferred to be alone. The old giant turned, his massive frame silhouetted against the dim glow of a single lantern. His face was carved with deep lines, his crimson beard streaked with gray. For a long moment, he just stared at Drupnir. "You're getting reckless," Gorm finally said, his voice as heavy as the stone around them. Drupnir squared his shoulders. "I don't know what you're talking about." Gorm's glowing eyes narrowed. "Don't insult me. I know you've been sneaking out." Drupnir felt his stomach drop. Gorm knew. Don't lie." The word rumbled through the cavern, final and absolute. Drupnir clenched his jaw. Gorm studied him for a long moment. "You think you're different from us," he said, his tone unreadable. "You think you're better." Drupnir's fists tightened. "I just think we don't have to live like this." "Like what?" Gorm took a slow step forward. "Like survivors? Like the last of our kind? We don't have to be monsters," Drupnir said, his voice firmer now. Gorm's expression didn't change. "And what would you have us be?" Drupnir hesitated. "Something else." A bitter laugh rumbled from Gorm's chest. "You think the humans will accept you?" He took another step closer, towering over Drupnir. "Do you think they will see you as anything more than a beast in their shadows?" Drupnir met his father's gaze. "I don't know, but I'd rather try than be like me?" The words hung between them, heavy and sharp. Drupnir swallowed. "That's not what I—" "You're young," Gorm interrupted, his tone colder now. "You don't understand the world. You don't understand what it does to creatures like us." Drupnir's chest tightened. "You dream of a life that doesn't exist," Gorm continued. "You think the humans will let you walk among them. They won't. And one day, when you realize that, it will be too late." Drupnir's breath was slow, measured. "Maybe, but I'll never know unless I try." For the first time, something flickered across Gorm's face, something like sadness. Then it was gone. "Then you are truly lost," Gorm said, turning away. Drupnir hesitated. "Father, you may be my son," Gorm said without looking back, "but you are not one of us." Drupnir felt the words like a blow to the chest. He stood there silent as Gorm walked deeper into the darkness. Drupnir didn't let his father's words stop him. His fist clenched at his sides as he hurried to catch up with Gorm deeper into the tunnels, his heavy footsteps echoing in the silence. "I'm not lost," Drupnir said, his voice steady. "I just don't want to live like a coward, hiding from the world." Gorm halted mid-step. Slowly he turned. Drupnir had seen his father angry before. He had seen his father tear men apart with his bare hands, rip through flesh and bone like they were nothing but paper. But this wasn't rage. It was worse. It was disappointment. "You think I'm a coward?" Gorm's voice was dangerously low. "You think I've spent my life hiding because I was afraid?" Drupnir swallowed hard but stood his ground. "You're afraid of change," he said. "You don't even want to try to be something else." Gorm let out a bitter chuckle, shaking his head. "You sound like her." Drupnir flinched. His mother. Gorm's glowing eyes flicked up to his son's face, reading the reaction. "Oh, you don't like that, do you?" He stepped closer, his massive frame casting a long shadow over Drupnir. "She had that same softness in her heart, that same foolish hope, and look where it got her." Drupnir's jaw tightened. "You don't know what happened to her," Gorm scoffed. "I know enough." A heavy silence stretched between them. For years, Drupnir had imagined different versions of her fate. Maybe she had been killed. Maybe she had started a new life. Maybe she was still out there somewhere, but Gorm never spoke of her, not until now. "She left us," Gorm said finally. "That's all that matters." Drupnir forced himself to stay calm. "She wanted more than this." Gorm's expression darkened. "And you think I don't?" His voice rumbled like distant thunder. "You think I wouldn't want a life where we weren't forced to live in filth, where we didn't have to take to survive?" Drupnir didn't answer. "You are my son," Gorm said, his voice growing colder, "and as long as you are part of this family, you will act like one." Drupnir clenched his fists. "You will join the next hunt," Gorm continued, his tone absolute, "and you will not shame your blood again." Drupnir felt something inside him coiled tight, an anger he had been trying to ignore for too long, but he said nothing. Not now, not yet. Gorm turned without another word, disappearing into the tunnels. Drupnir stood there for a long moment, staring at the darkened path ahead. His mother had left this life behind. Maybe it was time he did too.